and thank you for joining us tonight. We founded Presilium Private Wealth because we wanted to give you an amazing experience. And as part of that, we invited our good friend Julie back for two special wellness and cooking events to help you feel your best in 2025 and beyond. Julie is a certified nutrition consultant and runs her own company, Best Whole Self, which inspires individuals to feel better physically and mentally and boost their daily energy and productivity. Julie has been my personal health coach for more than a year and helps me to be at my absolute best every day so I can continue to serve all of you at the highest possible level. Tonight, we have an amazing healthy cooking class planned for you, and we'll also discuss the best ways to get more of the nutrients that we all need while consuming less. If you have any questions for Julie, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box below. Julie, thank you for being here again, and we're really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Jer. Hey, everyone. I'm Julie Palumbo. As Jerry said, it is so great to see, well, I can't see you all, but for have you all to see me back in the kitchen. I know it's been a while since we did a cooking demo together, and I'm super excited about this demo tonight because it's really encompassing the flavors of the season. And as Jerry said, we are going to be talking about how we could add more nutrients while not necessarily adding more food to our diet. So the last thing we want is to be complicating things. We want to keep things simple. But it's also important not to come from a place of deprivation when you're trying to eat healthier. Like instead of saying, I want to have less refined carbs, don't say that, because the second you start saying less of refined carbs or I'm cutting out sugar, that's the second that you want it more. It's better to say, I'm going to focus on incorporating more complex carbs in my diet, or more leafy greens, or more foods that are rich in antioxidants. So the more that you think in abundance, the easier it's going to be to live a healthy lifestyle. You're going to feel better mentally and physically about it. And also, just by adding more nutritionally dense foods, we'll naturally start to kind of push away the less nutritionally dense foods because we can only consume so much food in a day. So today's class is going to show two recipes that encompass all of what I was just talking about. One being the autumn quinoa salad. And I have been making this so much for all the cooking demos this season, in addition to myself. This is actually a staple in our Thanksgiving dinner because it is a great substitute or complement to the meal. It has the great carby satisfaction from the quinoa. You add the antioxidants and bursts of freshness through the pomegranates and craisins. So it's a little bit like cranberry sauce, and it's aesthetically pleasing. So everything, when you think about like the Thanksgiving dinner, is brown. So you have like brown turkey, brown gravy, brown stuffing, white potatoes, like it's all very muted. This brings color and vibrancy to the dinner table or to the buffet. So it hits all the notes. And because it incorporates some spinach, it could also take place of your salad. So there's a lot going on. And it definitely checks all the boxes for adding a very nutritionally dense ingredients into just one dish. So if you were to assign a dollar value to every nutritionally dense ingredient that we're throwing in here, anything that adds a boost to your overall health and wellness, you want to make this $1 million meal. So all of that being said, let's get started. I am going to walk you through not just the recipe, but also the kind of simplest to the most complex way of doing it, because at the end of the day, we just have to get done what we have to do. And sometimes we don't have the time to cut and roast the butternut squash or to cook quinoa. And that's okay, because we could definitely cheat in certain ways here. Starting with our quinoa. So I actually went the long way and I boiled my quinoa in chicken broth. I rinsed it first. So if you have the regular dry quinoa, you are going to have to rinse it first because a coating is on it called saponin that actually is a natural pesticide and it tastes like soap. So you want to always rinse that off. So put it in a sieve, rinse it off until the bubbles stop coming out, and you're good to go. That, of course, is the most complex way, because then you have to add it to your pot with your either chicken broth, vegetable broth, or water, let it boil, let it simmer, the whole thing. If you want to cut all of that out, the easiest thing to do is to buy a bag of frozen quinoa. They sell it at Whole Foods. It's just their store brand, 365 brand. And you pour out as much as you want. So, like in this case, maybe a cup, cup and a half, microwave it, and you're good. So that is the simplest way. In between, you can also do boil and bag quinoa, where you just boil a pot of water, throw the bag in for 10 minutes. There's no rinsing involved. There's no stirring and reducing. You literally just boil it for 10 minutes. So those are the three options. Hardest, easiest, kind of in the middle. Whatever it is that you prefer, go for it. I recommend, if you do it the long way, make more than what you need, and then just keep extra for, to put as a greens and grains bowl during the week, or add it to soup, or have it as a side. If you're going to go through the effort, why not make, 3 cups of quinoa instead of just 1? So let's add that as our base. If you guys have any questions as I'm going, please feel free to share them with Jerry, and he could field them to me. So I'm just going to do about a cup to a cup and a half of white quinoa. You could also use the tri-colored kind, or red quinoa, or black quinoa. It really doesn't matter for these purposes. It looks really pretty if you do the tri-colored. I'm just sticking with the basics with the white quinoa, but it's totally up to you. Next, we are going to add some of our organic spinach that I have washed. I go overboard with the spinach because I like it more like a salad. If you want it more like a grains-based dish, then you could scale back. This is totally up to you. This is choose your own adventure. But by adding the spinach, or you could opt for kale, you are adding great amounts of iron. You're adding fiber. So you're not just having like a plain quinoa, like grains dish. Now we're adding in iron, fiber, vitamin D, vitamin K, those good nutrients that we need in our diet. Instead of having a side of spinach, it's going right there in the pan. Next up, antioxidants. I have these nice pomegranate arils. You could buy a whole pomegranate and pick them out, or you could just buy them already pre-picked, as I did. I love this burst of flavor and brightness that it offers the dish. You may notice as you're going through the menu or the recipe that there is no actual dressing in this, and it's because all of the flavors marry together so well that you honestly don't need an additional dressing. So you season the quinoa with a little bit of salt, and if you cook it in chicken broth or vegetable stock, that's fine. The burst of flavor from the pomegranates, and also our butternut squash. So I just bake this with olive oil, salt and pepper, and just like the quinoa, there is, I guess, an easy, medium, and more difficult option to baking it. So I particularly chose middle of the road, and I bought my butternut squash pre-cut from Wegmans. So it is completely already cut. It just saved me a few minutes from cutting a whole butternut squash. I threw it on the pan with some parchment paper, as I said, put some olive oil, salt and pepper on it, and roasted it in the oven. You could buy the whole butternut squash yourself, cut it up, bake it without the skin on. That's great. It's the same amount of time to bake it on anyway. It's just that you actually have to cut it. And lastly, the easiest thing to do is to buy it frozen in a bag, put it on the tray, cover with salt, pepper, olive oil, and bake it. And then, that requires absolutely zero prep work. And it's the cheapest option. So you have 3 options there with your butternut squash. I particularly just really like doing the pre-cut fresh version myself, but there is no wrong answer when it comes to the butternut squash. Also, if you're already cooking sweet potatoes for Thanksgiving and you have extra and you want to do sweet potatoes instead of butternut squash, totally fine. That's another really, really good option. Okay, so now I'm going to deviate from your recipe a little bit and include an apple because I got these delicious Honeycrisp apples from a farm down the street. And I think they just add such a nice little extra pop of flavor and sweetness. So I'm going to actually just throw in just a half of an apple just to add a little bit more of that brightness and freshness, not to mention extra fiber, more complex carbs, and a great way to add vitamins and nutrients from the apple. Just slicing this through really quickly. You could omit the apple, or you could use honestly any apple of your choice. With the exception of Granny Smith, I think that's a little bit too acidic, a little bit too sour. But Gala, Macintosh, Honeycrisp, all of that are really good options. They're really mild, they're really sweet and light. Many are still in season this time of year, so it's a really nice addition to this salad. I'm just going to give this a quick toss before adding my remaining ingredients. Jer, are there any questions at this time?
None yet, Julie. I'm sure more are coming though.
No problem. So I'll ask you, Jerry, what is your favorite part of the Thanksgiving dinner?
I love Thanksgiving, Julie. It's one of my favorite holidays. Turn my camera back on. I especially like the sweet potatoes.
It's a good option.
And I
Sorry,
like
just getting
them
my
with cranberry, like you're putting into this salad.
Oh, that's interesting. So do you roast it?
Roast it with cranberries. Yeah, it's really good.
Oh, that's a good take on it. I like that.
Really good. Really good.
All right, so I'm just adding pumpkin seeds. You could add pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, pine nuts. It adds a nice little crunch. Obviously, the pumpkin seeds are perfect for this time of year. And they add a great healthy fat to the dish, which is what you want, especially when you're eating spinach, which contains the fat soluble vitamins A, E, D, and K. I should say, and or K. So you want to make sure that you always have a fat with your leafy greens. So whether that be an olive oil, an avocado, some kind of a nut or seed, to get those omega-3s packed in there, again, another point. Or if we're going from the dollar standpoint, another dollar for adding those pumpkin seeds. Now we're going to add,
since we're talking about nutrients, if people wanted to track what they were eating and make sure that they get everything that they need, what do you think the best way to do that is?
So you could go like as complex as an app like MyFitnessPal is actually a really good option. I feel like it's good for a short amount of time. If you've ever tracked food on an app, you know that it's very short-lived because it's very tedious. But if you just want to get an idea for how you're currently starting, and as you know this, Jerry, when I start working with clients, I always have them keep a food log, whether it be manually written, put on their computer, put in MyFitnessPal, just so that you get a snapshot of what you're eating and where there could be tweaks made to add more nutrients, maybe take away something that maybe you're eating a little bit more of that you shouldn't be. So an app is really great. And MyFitnessPal is fun because you could follow friends. So it has a little bit of a social media aspect to it. It really breaks down your food to not just like carbs, protein, and fat, but also like from like a vitamin standpoint, which is really great too. You could log the amount of water that you're drinking every day. Like there's more to it. And in my experience working with clients, if they've chosen the app version, it's always MyFitnessPal. I think that's like pretty user friendly, pretty common. Or as I said, you could just write it down. It's more tedious, I guess, if you were to do like a recipe like this. So there are websites, like when I publish recipes, I use a website that I put the recipe in and it calculates how much is in each serving size. So like all the vitamins and nutrients and, calories, fat and all that. So you could do that per meal if you're eating more homemade meals, or you could just do, the packaged food and read your labels. But I think an app is just way more accurate. But if you're just trying to get a snapshot of like overall, how many fruits and vegetables am I eating per day, or how many whole grains, like just literally just writing it down and seeing it is really eye-opening. And you could kind of pick like, okay, I could improve this here. Or maybe instead of a bagel for breakfast, I could do half a bagel and an apple with peanut butter. So you're swapping that simple carb for a complex carb and adding some protein. So that's just like a simple swap like that could really make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, Julie. What I like about MyFitnessPal is it remembers the foods that you eat. And I pretty much
Mm-hmm.
eat the same 20 or 25 things over and over again. So
Yeah.
once you put those in and you have it, it's very easy to add them throughout the day.
Yes, yes, I do remember that. And you're right. And it helps too in like for breakfast. Typically we all eat the same thing for breakfast, like all the
Yep.
time. Lunch. I would say like dinners are like the most complex. But yeah, once you have one, like if you want to add a specific recipe, it's in there. So if you ate autumn quinoa salad like 3 times in the week, you only have to add it once. All right, so I am just slicing these green onions. This adds a really nice crunch and flavor. Again, we are not relying on any kind of a dressing in this. So you really depend on the vibrant flavors of these green onions and the parsley. That's really going to brighten it up too. I lean heavily on herbs and, if you want to use the term spices in this case, as opposed to adding salt. So here's another example of adding more, but not thinking I'm going to have less salt or less sodium. Adding more fresh herbs and citrus. Citrus is a really great way. In this case, our citrus form is the pomegranate. Adding more citrus really brightens up and flavors a dish without having the extra sodium. Also, from a sweetness perspective, like orange is naturally sweet. If you're craving something sweet after dinner, which we always are, having an orange or a clementine is a really good way to satisfy that. And again, then you're adding more vitamin C, more fiber, more fruits to your diet. Naturally, then that means that you're having less refined sugar, less carbs. So I should say simple carbs. So it's all about thinking from a more perspective. More citrus and herbs to season naturally means that you need less salt to season, so you have less sodium. So it's just like the trade-off that when added up really makes a difference. And speaking of, we're going to throw in our feta. So this could be done completely vegetarian or vegan if you cook your quinoa and vegetable stock and you omit the feta. So if you have someone coming over for Thanksgiving who is gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, and you're like, what the heck are they going to eat? This is a good option. If you want, you could serve this salad with the feta on the side, and people could sprinkle their own feta on top, kind of like as if it were a crouton. I like mixing it in. I think the saltiness, the natural saltiness in feta really gives it a good flavor. So you don't have to add more salt. But again, you could always add, you can't take away. So put it in and taste. If you want, keep it on the side. But if you do add it in, consider that in your seasoning. And maybe you're going to go a little bit lighter on the salt because you have the saltiness in the feta.
Julie, I really like the framework of thinking about what you should be eating rather than what you should not. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you start your day thinking, I'm going to have 2 servings of fruits and vegetables with every single meal,
Mm-hmm.
and that winds up being a lot. It's
Yeah.
really hard to eat outside of that and
Yeah.
if you really follow through with that and have that
Yes.
many vegetables with every meal, you're full all the time.
Yes, exactly. Right. You naturally just can't consume anymore. And I remember Jerry talking to you about like adding more of like the fruit standpoint. And it's like, I feel like we're just always naturally programmed to think less like, oh, I was good. I didn't have sugar. I didn't have any desserts this week. I didn't have any alcohol this week. Yeah, but did you get more fruits and vegetables? And no one thinks in that way, I guess, from like a more perspective, because when you're trying to eat healthy, I think just we as a society have always been trained to like eat less, but you don't have to eat less. Just eat more of the good stuff. And again, when you shift your mindset into that way, it's not deprivation, it's empowerment, it's choices. You're choosing to have more fruits and vegetables instead of something that is nutrient void. You're choosing to put the right fuel in your body that's going to make you stronger, healthier, more mentally sharp, have a stronger immune system than something that's just going to fill your belly for an hour or two and then just spike your sugar and completely wipe you out energy wise. So it's really just making those choices that make you feel empowered and in control, as opposed to like, oh, I can't have that. And hey, who cares? If you want to have a piece of pie with Thanksgiving dinner, of course you're going to. Like, no one's saying anything is off limits. But if you're looking at your plate and you're like, how much fiber can I get into this dish? How much color can I get into this dish? It's just naturally going to create like a very small space for traditional stuffing or mashed potatoes. Okay. Lastly, we are doing the parsley. And if you have been on a cooking demo with me before, you know my saying, you never cut an herb, you only tear your herbs. Because all of this good stuff, and I just smelled it as I pulled it off, is really the essence of the parsley. It's what's giving the flavor. It's all the good, healthy, essential oils in the parsley that if I were to cut it on this cutting board, I would leave it in the cutting board. So the leaves of herbs are just so delicate that there's really not much in there separating it from being in the leaf and being on your board. So you just want to tear the parsley roughly. And it doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be perfect. I like to keep mine a little bit bigger because I really like the taste of parsley. It definitely adds a lot of flavor to the dish. And I think parsley is just such a great addition to any kind of meal. If you feel like something's flat, you either need an acid or you need an herb. And parsley is the perfect herb for that.
Julie, something else you said about MyFitnessPal was that you can link with other people to share your results and talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's also really important too. It's so important to have at least one buddy
Mm-hmm.
for nutrition that you can compare notes with and share with each other, and then one workout buddy.
Yes.
You know, every single morning, Brooke and I meet at the gym at the same time on the same days. And I know when my alarm goes off, real early in the morning, I better get to the gym or I'm going to hear about it all day from Brooke. And it just makes it so much easier to commit to a schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, like when other people are watching, it's, whether they say something or not, other people are watching. If you commit to eating a certain way, like, we all indulge when we want, but then how many times are you thinking like, oh gosh, like if anyone ever saw what I was doing, they'd be like mortified. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like, I'm going to put my best face forward. I'm going to, make this promise to myself and show others that I could do this too. And it's more fun. Like if you get into a group where you're all starting to eat healthy and then it starts with like sharing recipes or saying, hey, I tried this, then like you kind of almost want to like one up it, and then you're like, oh, well, you had 2 eggs and I don't know, an apple for breakfast. I'm going to have 2 eggs, an apple, and some almonds to add some extra fat. Like you're just going to keep like upping it. And I think it really helps you stay on track and push past your goals. And it makes it fun. And then it just becomes an enjoyable lifestyle. And I never heard anyone say, I'm eating healthy and I feel worse. Everyone starts eating healthy and they feel better, and that makes them want to keep going. The hardest part is starting and being consistent enough that you get to that other side to see all the benefits of the work that you're doing. Because once you get there and once you experience a life that is free of brain fog and energy draining and bloat and just like feeling lousy, you are not going to want to go back to what you're eating. Like you still are going to pick like what you want to eat. It's just going to be the healthier food option.
Julie, I think most people don't know what they're missing. I think most people
Yeah.
are so used to eating processed food, and this becomes their new baseline,
Yeah.
that if they could just commit to doing this for 2 or 3 weeks just to see how they feel, feel so much better, think so much clearer, have so much more energy,
Yeah.
that would keep it going.
I 100% agree. I do. Well, it used to be like a follow on your own, and now it's a guided, like a 14-day reset. And every single time by day 10, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. And I lived through this. So I'm not just like saying this and, not really living it myself. So for those of you who don't know, I have Crohn's disease and I was so sick for years. And in 2013, I worked with a nutritionist who had me give up gluten. And I thought, well, that's not my problem. I don't have a problem with gluten. And she said, just try it. Give it 2 weeks and see how you feel. Literally 10 days to the day that I gave up gluten, my life was drastically changed. But I didn't know that how I was feeling before wasn't normal. To me, it was normal. To me, it was normal to not feel well after every single meal. I just thought, okay, like this is my life. And I thought it was normal to have low energy. And I thought it was normal to just not be able to eat like anything for a period of time. And then I went gluten free and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is great. This is amazing. Like I'm not even tempted. It's been 11 years now and I'm not even tempted to have a piece of bread because I don't want to feel like I did before. And I feel like once you get to that other side and you're like, oh yeah, how I was feeling before was not how I had to. You don't have to be achy. You don't have to have headaches all the time. You don't have to have low energy. I work with a lot of people who have just like they feel like constantly like whatever they eat, they just like their stomach either gets really bloated or they get nauseous and they're like, oh, that's just how I'm eating. And they get to the other side and they're like, oh my gosh, this is not how life has to be. And it is so freeing and it feels amazing. So speaking of amazing, this is our salad. It looks really pretty. And now we're going to move into our dessert round, which is a nice cream sundae, which is just frozen banana. So again, we are replacing all of the simple sugars and simple carbs. And if, depending on where you're getting your ice cream from, probably a load of ingredients that you can't even pronounce. And replacing it with 4 simple ingredients that you know exactly what is in this dessert. And it's going to taste just as good, if not better, as soft serve ice cream. So I'm going to get my frozen bananas out of the freezer. I like using these reusable bags. They're great. They're from Amazon. So I use them for my frozen bananas. I use them to keep romaine lettuce nice and dry after washing it. So they're really great. They're found on Amazon. Just a little FYI. So I'm going to use 2 frozen bananas. You want your bananas to have speckles, like brown spots is the ideal ripeness to freeze. So if they're a little underripe, like they're bright yellow or yellow green, they're not going to be as sweet. And if they're too ripe, they're going to be mushy and not freeze well and not have a good texture when you blend them. So really you want them like cheetah speckled bananas. If I have bananas and they somehow last in this house to get to that point that they are speckled, I will immediately freeze them so that I have them for either an ice cream or a smoothie bowl, as I like mine a little more thick without adding milk. In this case, because it's going to be a dessert, we are going to add milk. You could use any milk of choice. You could do Fairlife, you could do oat milk, almond milk, soy milk. I just recommend it be unsweetened regardless of what you choose. So we're going to add our own sweetener. You don't need, or I should say the banana is sweet enough. We're going to top it with a little honey. That's how I like to eat it. But you don't need a sweetened beverage. So if you have almond milk, get it unsweetened. Don't get like sweetened vanilla, or you're kind of defeating the point here. Speaking of vanilla, we're going to add vanilla extract. So you don't need vanilla flavored milk.
Julie, I like this with coconut milk.
Okay, that is a really good option. That adds a nice little tropical flavor to it.
Really good.
It's really good if you do a smoothie and you add like a teaspoon of like the full fat coconut milk that comes in a can. That is a really good way to add a healthy fat, like make that smoothie more satisfying. So smoothies are another way to add more by having less, because you could pack smoothies with fruits, vegetables. I always throw spinach or kale in my smoothies, chia seeds or flaxseed. And then you could throw in either a healthy fat through coconut oil, full fat coconut milk, or avocado, plus protein powder. It is literally a full meal. And there are times that I don't get to dinner until later and I don't want a heavy meal in my stomach. So having a smoothie like that is actually a really good complex dinner that's really easy on the stomach to digest, and it's delicious. All right, so we're just gonna blend this right now. By the way, this is the most basic food processor. I literally got it because I opened a checking account in college, and they still sell it. You can still find it on Amazon. It's a Cuisinart. It's not like, a no-name brand, but it's like that little fighter that just is perfect, and it doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's this dishwasher safe, so it's perfect. So let me tell you, you do not need to make this fancy or complicated. Right, just blending it up. All right. So now here comes the fun part, and this is where the sundae comes in. You could put whatever toppings you want on it. So I am personally going to do, as I mentioned, I like honey on it. I also, and Jerry, you mentioned the coconut milk. I like putting shredded coconut on it too. That's a really good option. I'm actually just going to spoon this in here. Okay. Spoon this in. And I am going to do a little bit of the honey. And then I'm going to do some dark chocolate because we are adding antioxidants to this dessert. So you want anything, and I save this in the wrapper because it's 72% cacao, and you want at least 65% to have optimal antioxidant properties. Anything more than 75, I feel like, is way too bitter. I am a milk chocolate girl myself. My husband loves dark chocolate, and I would not snack on it, but I think it's a really nice additive to this because you have the honey that's sweetening it up. The banana is sweet, and then so like the dark chocolate almost balances it out and doesn't make it as sweet. If you were to use regular milk chocolate, I mean, that's obviously fine, but I think it'd be a little too sweet. So this bitter dark chocolate adds the antioxidants, and it is a nice little balance. So it's kind of like if you've ever had Chunky Monkey ice cream from Ben and Jerry's, it's banana ice cream with dark chocolate chunks like this and walnuts. You can make that 100%. Just instead of the ice cream, do the bananas. But you can make your own Chunky Monkey ice cream, and you'll feel like you're being a bad person by doing it. You're gonna think you're like so indulgent, and it's not. It's so healthy, so much good potassium, vitamin D, antioxidants. It is so delicious. Even like the extra calcium in just adding whatever milk that you add. That's like the one redeeming factor I think of ice cream is like, okay, you get some calcium, some protein from it, but without all the extra junk that goes into it. And you have your own bowl of Chunky Monkey ice cream. That is delicious. I would have to add walnuts though, but I don't have walnuts anymore. I use them on my banana bread this week. But it is simple, again, full of nutrients. You want to think $1 for every good nutrient in your dish and make it the $1 million meal.
Thank you, Julie. That would be a great dinner, is the autumn quinoa salad with the ice cream. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's so, and again, if you want that something sweet after dinner, this is like the perfect complement to it. All adding peanut butter, like natural peanut butter, natural almond butter to it is great. So it's like the banana peanut butter combination. Really, like as I mentioned, the walnuts, sliced almonds. There's just so many good options out there that you could add to really bring this to life. I mean, if you want to add whipped cream and a cherry, like go for it. But if you want to keep it healthy, this could be breakfast.
No, thanks so much, Julie. That was great. And I really appreciate you joining us tonight. That was a lot of fun. And we're looking forward to doing it again in 2 weeks with a different menu.
Yes. And the one in 2 weeks has a cocktail too. So that's a little extra treat.
And then 1 week after that, we have the chocolate tasting where we whip a number of great dark chocolates that you can add to this.
Yes. And honestly, and I remember the chocolate tasting last time, and there were so many fun options. Like there was like an orange one, or like some kind of spice, was it maybe cayenne, I think. And like just adding that to a dessert really could elevate the flavor as well.
Well, and thank you, all of you, for joining us tonight. We love spending this time with you and cooking with Julie. We have a number of great events coming up, including the next cooking class with Julie on December 5th, and then the chocolate tasting soon after on December 13th, and would love for all of you to join us there as well. Also, thank you again for introducing us to your friends and family and inviting them to events like this one. We have really enjoyed working with them and also helping them to reach their financial goals. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We hope that you have a great night and a great Thanksgiving, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.